What's up, YouTube, man? It's your boy Rojo, Convict's Perspective, man. Happy Friday, y'all. And like I told you yesterday in the live, today we're going to talk a little bit about like Concord, Pittsburg, as well as the Contra Costa County Jail, Martinez, West County. A little story about my younger days, basically, man. And we'll get it started, man. I I came out to California in 1992. I had got kicked out of Texas, man. I was on probation for like 10 years. Down there you go to adult county jail at 17 versus like 18 out in California. So man, as soon as I turned 17, they kicked in my door like 3 4 days later. On some stuff I had been doing out there. And what they did is they violated my probation, and I got caught with a gauge that was sawed off, illegally. And what they did, man, is they basically told me I could either go to prison or get the hell out of their state. Well, my family had already planned to move to California anyway, so that wasn't a big deal. So we made it look like, okay, we'll just move, whatever. I did about 3 4 months in the county, and on the day I got out, we bounced. Well, fast forward, man, I come to California, man. It was summer of '92, and I touched down. The first place I moved out there was on Tree Boulevard in Concord. And I wasn't banging or nothing like that. When I first got there, I had never even heard of North, South. You know what I mean? Obviously, heard of Crips and Bloods, but I had never heard of Norte or Sioux or nothing like that. So I go to a little Taco Bell on Clayton Road, man. I didn't know nobody up there, man. I was just going to find some tree. You know what I mean? Because I still smoked tree back then. And the first people I meet up there were some dudes from a group out in Concord called TMK, also known as the Mad Kings. And I met like this dude known as Geraldo, Taco Joe, and this dude Nonio. And man, I started messing with them, along with some like stoner type white dudes that were out there, man. When I first moved out to Cali, Concord specifically, the white dudes and the Northerners, man, they were real tight. You know what I mean? So it was real common to see all walks of life in Concord associating together. You got the gangbangers from TMK or VCN, and then you got a bunch of dudes that play electric guitar in little rock bands, all chilling, smoking weed. You know what I mean? There was no, the only enemy there at the time was one another, and that would evolve over females and money. You know what I mean? Usually females, but the dominant group on that side of Concord at the time was TMK, the Mad Kings, and they were some cool dudes, man. They were all real chill. You know what I mean? And they conducted themselves really well. I was too busy slanging. You know what I mean? I got my hands on some bags and went to work doing that to really trip off the gangbanging stuff. On the other side of Concord, there were some VCNs around over there, but they more congregated over by the Monument area at the time. And VCN was and it probably still is the oldest, biggest, most dominant group in Concord as far as Northerners go. VCN's Barrio Concord Norteño, and they got a lot of classic pieces that have actually contributed to the history, in the East Bay as far as banging goes, man. You got Gangster, who came out from Richmond and basically is the one who got VCN started. Before there was VCN, a lot of people don't know there was VCF, which was Barrio Concord Flats. And it was called Flats because there really wasn't no tall buildings way back in the days. And there's only a couple now, you know what I mean? But VCN was the dominant group, man. You had Gangster, who came out from Richmond, Joker, Anthony Inian, who came out from Richmond. They were like the two most known people. You had Payaso, you had Polar Bear, which was, probably my best homeboy out of all of them. R.I.P. to Polar Bear. You had Weddle Jack, you had Sapo, you had Smiley, you had Snoop, you had Joey Forge. You know what I mean? And man, they were deep, bro. You know what I mean? And they dominated, man. However, the reason that the upstate Southerners were able to infiltrate Concord was due in part to, all the groups becoming more focused on, the bag, you know what I mean, in females, the ones who didn't get hooked on stuff or just slanging, they weren't, taking care of like business as far as banging goes, you know what I mean? Um, And, it just started to spiral, and I've explained this before why, Northerners were real kind of messed up to the Pisces was because, man, every time, if there was one or two younger homies walking around, in the monument area, the guys who looked like Pisces, said they were Pisces, whatever, they jam them up, beat them up, you know what I mean? And, you go to retaliate, everybody you see is dressed in work clothes, boots, not looking like the opposition at all. And they'd be like, "Oh no, Paisa, man." So it became commonplace for any younger Paisa or Sereno, whatever, whichever one it was. You couldn't really differentiate because that was their disguise. They'd hide under being a Paisa until the circumstances were correct, where they could identify themselves as Serenos. You know what I mean? So the VCN dudes, being the predominant gang in that area, man, a lot of them got hooked on dope. A lot of them, became normal citizens as far as holding down a job, having a girl, maybe some kids, and just stopped actively pursuing, confrontation, with these people taking over in the area. I know in 92, 93, there wasn't any. We could mob through anywhere. Okay, I won't say there was any, but they would never let themselves be known. You know what I'm saying? I go do my first term in when did I go? Like January of '93, I think it was. I go do my first term. When I come out, all of a sudden they're everywhere. But the downfall of that was drugs. All the homeboys getting hooked on drugs and going from house to house, just searching for that next little piece of meth. You know what I mean? Not focusing on what they've been focused on prior to the drug problem. You know what I mean? But VCN, man, there are some straight. They were with the business. You know what I mean? Payaso was with the business, bro. Payaso wasn't playing. Polar Bear wasn't playing. Snoop definitely Snoop ain't playing. If y'all know Snoop, y'all know Snoop ain't playing. Um, there's some other groups out there, man. Norte Mafia. You know what I mean? They had a few dudes. You know what I mean? They had dudes like Soldier Boy, and I think my boy Paya comes from Norte Mafia, man. I never really paid attention to what individual group people were from because I just looked at everybody as homeboys. I've always been like that. You know what I mean? If we're doing the same thing out here, let's do it together. So I always used to think that, like Soldier Boy was from VCN, OG Ivy Clay, Walter and Chinky Rias. You know what I mean? I thought all them guys were VCN this whole time. I come to find out one's TMK, one's Norte Mafia, one's VCN. You know, to me it was just homeboys from Concord. You know what I mean? But I never got put on in Concord. You know what I mean? Although I'd associate really tough, I was more focused on slanging and robbing. You know what I mean? Our thing was to, me and a couple guys from TMK actually were my crime partners in this, and a regular Wood actually. Fucking, he was with the business. We'd hit jewelry stores and gun stores. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't do it traditional takeover style, nothing like that, man. We drive around all of Northern California looking for targets and hit them after hours. We'd look up gun stores in the phone book and we drive by all of them 2 in the morning. Back then in the early '90s, some of them wouldn't even put their products in the safe at night. So 2 o'clock in the morning, we check it out. We check it out the next day, make sure nobody was living in the establishment, whatnot, and we drive a truck through the front of the business. You know what I mean, and get ours. You know what I mean. Same with jewelry stores, the exact same thing. Early '90s, not a lot of surveillance as far as technology, video, and all that goes, and not a lot of people on cell phones. None of that extra, BS that hinders you from handling your business. You know what I mean? But yeah. Anyway, I used to do that with some dudes from TMK, and that's actually what got me my first term. I took a trip to the county. You know what I mean? I got busted. See, like I said, in Texas, you go when you're 17. I had got a little quick thing for, I got involved in a burglary at a house party and whatnot, and I actually went to juvenile hall in Martinez to the Diablo unit, and ended up getting sentenced to like a county year. But I had so much, a few months of credit built up, and they actually gave me more than I went to the county, so I only ended up doing a few months. And I didn't last that long on the streets, man, before they finally wrapped me up with all those burglaries we were doing. We were like suspected in 107, um, of those style burglaries, and we probably did 90 of them. You know what I'm saying? So they offered me 2 years. and I couldn't turn it down, man. They hit me with like 13 felonies. I had a first degree burglary that I didn't even do, that I just copped to. The homeboys that did it, I wasn't even involved, but I'll just take it so they don't got to take it, because if I, what had happened is, man, we hit an arcade and we took all the change machines out of the arcade. Where you put your money in and you get tokens or quarters or whatnot. Well, back then it was all quarters. So there's this place in Concord that had a whole bunch of them. We ended up hitting it, and it was many, many thousands of dollars, because they had ones that changed hundreds. They had ones that changed, 20s, whatever. But inside of them machines would be a stack of cash like that, plus 100 pounds of quarters. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but it added up to like 18,000, right? Well, anyway, we ended up getting pulled over one day after we had hit a gun store, and a couple of the idiots, man, I told them, I'm like, hey, don't bring no pieces with us. If they see us, they're gonna roll us. You know what I mean? So I'm in the car with these dudes, and they start pulling out brand new pistols off these dudes that have the damn price tags hanging from the trigger guard. After I told them specifically leave them at the crib. You know what I mean? We were headed out to the city. Anyway, there was three of us that were adults. I had barely made 18. Geraldo might have been 20, and my boy Richie was 18. And then there was a 17-year-old female juvenile and a 17-year-old male juvenile. And one of the juveniles flipped on us. And I'm with all the adults and holding and stuff, and I hear them telling the cops, "Man, S my D." You know what I mean? Like, I ain't telling you nothing. I'm like, cool. It wasn't the case with the juveniles, man. So a couple hours goes by. We're all sitting and holding. I think they're gonna have to let us. I think they're gonna have to let me go, because I didn't have nothing on me. They might stick them with possession of stolen property or something. No big deal. But they take us out. They pull me out. They're like, "You think you're funny, huh?" So they pull me out to like the where they first bring the cars in. I guess the parking lot area. It's all secured, and there's some change machines in there. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Because we had thrown them off a cliff way out in the middle of nowhere in some place called Morgan Territory. They used the tow truck winch them things back up the cliff, and they had them as evidence. So, man, fingerprints, whatever, DNA, I don't know. This might be pre DNA, but either way, they're like, we know the whole story. We know about such and such, such and such, such and such, such and such. He named like 9 things that they had confessed to. And I don't know. I wasn't paying attention back then, because my awareness wasn't as what it is now. But I couldn't deduct who the link was. I want to say it was the dude. Because the chick was with the business, bro. This girl wasn't playing. Her name was Cynthia. We called her Little Diablo. She was with it, bro. But anyway, man, as far as Concord goes, man, there's EBN, East Bay Norteños. I don't know if they're still around. Who else was there? TMK, VCN, East Bay Locals. I think that's also in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of little hoods, man, but none had the significance that VCN had. Man, it's the oldest, the biggest, most people. I used to go around and I'd meet people like at barbecues and stuff talking about their VCN. It's like, wow, I never seen you. You know what I mean? But anyway, the way I had got put on was that first trip to the county. I went straight from juvenile hall. Like I said, there was homies in juvenile hall, and I associated with them, but kind of loosely. You know what I mean? I kind of stuck to myself, because California California lockup's way different than Texas, man. So everything was kind of new to me, man. The way people interacted, the way staff ran stuff. In Texas, man, where I was at in Houston, there's a jail, we called it West Dallas, and that's where juvenile offenders go, and it's more like adult lockup, man. You go to a room, whoop de whoop, and there's wings and this and that, and it was just way more. It was just way different than I was used to, man. So I kind of had my awareness up, man, because in Texas, you can expect to box 2 or 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Like little things, man, out there. If somebody didn't like you, somebody had a bad day, there'd be a reason to fade. And I couldn't figure out what it was in California, man. So I kind of was just, I wasn't there that long, and I didn't really mess with nobody because I didn't understand the politics, right? Anyway, I get sentenced, as an adult from juvenile. I get a year in the county, man. I end up going out to the farm, my first time. I had never been in no trouble, man. So let me go to the farm. I was there with some homeboys. They used to let homeboys go there back in 90, 93. You know what I mean? And there was Crazy Boy from Pittsburgh out there, and that was my boy, and that's who got me to start banging, really. And then there was Joey Forrest from Concord. There was an older dude named Rigoberto. I don't remember where he was from. I want to say he was from Berkeley. But That's where I started, man. You know, the homeboys were like, "Hey, you should kick it with us," and you know, I knew Joey from the streets. You know, I mean, a Crazy Boy was just cool. He was a cool dude. He had been to YA and stuff, man. So he started teaching me about, you know, the expectations and what it's like to be a homie and stuff. And I was like, oh man, these dudes are a lot similar, you know, to the dudes that I mess with in Texas. You know, the way that the Latin Kings would function at the time, because I used to associate real strong with the Latin Kings in Texas. So man, it was real similar, man. So you know, one day I told Mario, I'm like, man, all right, I'm with it. You know what I mean? He's like, all right, bro. You know what I mean? That was it. There wasn't no like jumping in or nothing like that. I mean, me and this dude Rooster, he was a white boy norteño. There was something wrong with him. This dude Richmond, Eddie something. I can't remember his last name. But Rooster from Richmond, man, me and him put in some work. You know what I mean? He was already a homeboy, but we did a removal out there. We didn't get caught. You know what I mean? It was off the hook, man. At the farm, you could do what you want, man. People were ODing, and man, it was crazy. But yeah, man. After I got out of there, man, that's when I really started hanging out. You know, on the Pittsburgh tip. You know what I mean? I'd be messing with my boy Crazy. You know, and a lot of people out there from the Pittsburgh area. You know, Pistol Pete, all them type of cats. You know, Lizard was from out there from VPC. You know, Barrio Pittas Califas. You know, and back then there was like Eastside Pittsburgh, ESP. You know, which was like Shadow and all them cats. You know, VPC was Mario, Pistol Pete. You know, a lot of the old school, like VPC is like Pittsburgh's VCN. It's the oldest, the original. You know, for a while it was real deep, but the same thing. Drugs devastated that hood. You know, homeboys were getting hooked on crank and black and all that kind of stuff. And you know, that's what fell apart. I mean, Pittsburgh never really had the Sereno problem that Concord had. You know what I mean? They couldn't establish in Pittsburgh. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were around. Like the Monkeys would, you know, they were from Los Monkeys Trece. They would come out from like Oakley and Brentwood once in a while and try to catch you slipping and stuff like that. But you know, I stayed over there in Shore Acres. You know what I mean? And man, I never really seen no Southerners around. You know what I mean? We'd actively go look for them, but 9 times out of 10, it would bring us back to Monument and Concord. You know what I mean? Where that's where they were at, man. They got deep, man. Over the '90s, every year, man, there was 20 more of them, man. It got to the point where you couldn't go through none of them streets in Concord off of Monument anywhere in that whole Monument corridor without getting some bottles, some rocks. You know what I mean? If you were like a little homie, they beat you up. Like when you were one of the older school cats, man, they'd usually just break on you. You know what I mean? They'd throw rocks. You get out the car, they'd break because they weren't really clapping. You know, they shot my house up once, but they weren't really clapping like the homies were. You know what I mean? They were more opportunistic. You know what I mean? They try to catch little youngsters slipping. You know what I mean? The little pee wee homies and stuff. But Pittsburgh never had that problem, man. You know, and when I was first out there, it was just two, man, and then there was just two major groups, the VPC and Eastside Pittsburgh. But man, CAL popped on the scene, and they became the biggest group real fast. Crazy ass Latinos. They were like centered over off railroad in the Bully and over in that area, and they blew up, man. I had never heard of them until like, man, like after my first term. You know what I mean? I'm sure that they probably established before then, but you know they weren't significant. Now they're the biggest group in Pittsburgh by far. You know, and they got guys all over. Like VCN has guys in Pittsburgh, Antioch, Concord. You know, all them little areas. CAL's everywhere too. Oakley, Brentwood, Antioch, Pittsburgh, Bay Point. You know, they spread like wildfire. But banging in Concord was a trip, man. Like, you know, most of the experiences I had, you know, besides like I don't know, they shot up my house once, threw a lot of bottles, man. You know, I did some stuff to them too. You know, that you know, I can't really discuss, but it was mostly it was mostly homeboys red on red. You know, it would be dudes beefing over a chick, or a fight breaks out at a party between two dudes, and then he goes back and tells his homeboys he got jumped, and you know, it'd be little misdemeanor type stuff like that, man. It wasn't like full fledged, you know, video warfare, but there would be little skirmishes, man. You know, like we usually dominated Cow Park over there in Concord, or like when I was in Pittsburgh, it'd be Buchanan. You know, we'd be out there deep, nobody'd come around. But you know, people get to drinking, and that's when them fights would start, and you know, that's when you'd have little skirmishes with other hoods. You know, but Man, Pittsburgh always held it down really good against the opposition. You know, they were never able to establish a stronghold anywhere I know. You know, there'd be individual Southerners, but they weren't trying to promote none of that kind of stuff because it just wouldn't last in Pittsburgh. It was Pittsburgh's small. You know, Pittsburgh's half the size of Concord, and there's homeboys like everywhere, and they're active. You know what I mean? And Pittsburgh's really active to this day. You know, especially CAL. A lot of them other hoods have fallen off, but CAL's right in the middle of everything that goes on in Pittsburgh, 100%. But man, that's basically the little intro story to how I got started associated with the homeboys. It was all about slanging. You know what I mean, and chilling. You know, there wasn't too much work being put in. You know, even as far back as the beginning of my career. You know, people got lackadaisical in the hood. You know, they'd be more focused on barbecues. You know, chilling with females, getting their money. You know, and as they got older, doing the adult thing, which you can't take nothing away from that. But people have asked me a lot of times in a lot of comments and a lot of videos like how Richmond got lost and how Concord got lost, and that's the exact reason why. It was laziness. It was not allowing oneself to see the big picture of what was going on. Them dudes were coming in a couple a week for years. And then pretty soon there was too many where even if you banged on them hard, you'd only put a dent in it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't nothing. No disrespect to any upstaters whatsoever. But anytime that you did something to them, they would tell. Also, and it's like I'm not saying that all upstaters are like that. No disrespect, because I don't give a damn about North and South. But that was just the reality of what was going on back then. You know, you chase them dudes over off of Monument and say like Oak Grove or whatever the street it turns into on the other side of Monument, they'd run into the stub station and point. You know what I mean? All in their colors and stuff too, man. It was hard, bro. It was hard to get them dudes, man. They were crafty. They'd have little fence boards cut out. You know what I mean? They bang on you. They bang through these fence boards, jump another fence, man. You could never catch them. So they were crafty dudes, man. They were sharp, man. I'll give it to them. They got about 100 deep, bro, and then all of a sudden they were all out there representing. When 2 weeks before they were all Pisces. But that's what lost. That's what lost the Concord area, man, right there. And you guys know I ramble, so I'm a ramble. But I noticed recently, in trips to Concord when I've been out in the Bay Area and stuff, that I don't see them hardly anywhere. I don't know if they're being dormant again. I know they got hit with a federal indictment that centered on some park and shop, distribution, using park and shop as a hub sort of for their distribution points. And I know that ate up a lot of their members. A lot of fools got hit up, or some got hit up on some murder indictments and stuff like that. But man, you don't see nobody like in Concord no more. And the homies, as far as Northerners go, they're not so easy to identify, man, because not like in the early 90s and stuff when you could look at a homeboy and tell, because we'd be red down, you know what I mean, flamed up, obvious. It's obvious by looking. Nowadays, people aren't really dressing like that, especially in the East Bay. You know what I mean? They're blended in. They look more like whatever style's banging in pop culture. That's what the homies are gonna rock. So they don't stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, if you're smart, like the hairstyles and stuff like that, and particular kind of hats and speech patterns and things of that nature. But just driving down with the eye, it's really hard to ascertain who's who. You know what I mean? Because it's just not like it was, back in the days when people banged. You knew what they banged right away. So, I don't really see them like they used to be, like a huge presence. Mostly in the mid to late '90s and early 2000s, they were everywhere. But it's not so much anymore. It's not. I mean, they're there. Don't get me wrong, and they're probably in Pittsburgh too. But it's just, it ain't the same, man. Things have changed. Like we talk about it all the time. How times have changed, and people's characters and demeanors and stuff have changed over the years. And we say it's for the worse, but I mean, is it really? That's our opinion. People are just different. Times have changed, and Concord and Pittsburgh, they're not like they were in the '90s for sure. And I'm sure 20 years from now, the skinny jean dudes will be saying, "Oh man, it wasn't like that in my time." But I mean, there's a lot of tradition in Concord and Pittsburgh. There's some good established hoods. you know, and they don't get their recognition, especially Concord. You know, Pittsburgh gets some recognition, you know, because of dudes like Lizard, because dudes like myself, you know, a lot. There's a lot of ballers in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh homies were about their money. You know what I mean? 100%, and they'll put it down. You know what I mean? But I'm done rambling for now. I know I bang to different little topics within a topic. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. But we're gonna do more on this one in a part two on this, man, and we'll talk more about Pittsburgh and some of the things that were going on, and as well as bring in Antioch a little bit. But it's your boy Rojo, man. I'll probably holler at y'all on the live tonight, man. Later.